Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Last year I started doing a little video series where I talked about diversifying your fantasy reading. I did start that in March with some recommendations of fantasy books written by women, and then we did Asian authors as well, and we did some other things like trans and non-binary authors, and then I also mentioned standalones, novellas. I tried to keep it interesting and mix things up. I also did a horror version for horror books in October, and I did a December version with Christmas and holiday romances. But now we're going kind of back to the roots with this little series, because today I want to encourage you to diversify your fantasy reading once again, and this time we are going to talk about fantasy books written by Black authors. Now, before we go into my recommendations and I tell you a little bit more about these 8 books, most of them are a series, I have to make a confession, and that is that I'm actually not very good at reading adult fantasy books by Black authors. And at the end of the video, I will mention 3 books/series that are like highest up on my priority list to read, but you will see that I don't have a ton of adult fantasy recommendations, unfortunately. And so I will add in some YA recommendations as well. I think these books are good no matter what, but I know that for some people they just prefer reading adult fantasy over YA fantasy, and I totally get it. I don't know, I think because of the people I also follow online, I don't really see them read a lot of Black authored fantasy for adults. So there's definitely a bit of a gap there. And if you have recommendations for me, I would love to hear them. Now, this will have some crossover with some of the previous videos I have done, but I don't think that's an issue because usually I love these books so much that I just can't stop shouting about them. And if you still haven't read them, then I feel justified in still shouting about them. The first and obvious choice is the 5th season / the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. Now, to my shame, I have to admit that I still haven't read more N.K. Jemisin. I feel like I started out with the creme de la creme that is the Broken Earth trilogy, and I'm just so worried that her other series just won't hit quite as hard. And so I'm really scared to read more. But the 5th season is a book where we follow 3 main characters. They all live in this world where we have a group of people who can manipulate the earth. They can cause earthquakes, they can cause kind of like volcanoes to break out, but they can also calm the earth. So when something terrible happens, they can stop it from happening. And these people are discriminated against and mistreated in this world, and we follow 3 characters that live in this world, and through their eyes we kind of see this mistreatment, and some of what's going on in this is just so horrible. So I would say maybe check content warnings if you struggle with certain themes or certain things. But I absolutely love this series. I think Alabaster might still be one of my favorite characters of all time, but yeah, it's a very fascinating, very expansive fantasy world that we explore here. We have kind of almost like a sci-fi twist to the world, but then also we have these fascinating characters that really have to go through literal hell to survive. Also, parts of the series are written in 2nd person, and if you've been here before, you probably heard me say is my favorite. I love 2nd person narration, and I think the 5th season does it perfectly. Like, I've never seen it done better. Next up, we have the Dead Djinn universe by P. Djèlí Clark. I do talk about P. Djèlí Clark quite a lot because I love his books a lot. Now, a lot of his books lean a little bit more horror, such as Ring Shout, which I have recommended a lot before, but I feel like the Dead Djinn universe has a much stronger like fantasy feeling. It also has this kind of like mystery aspect to it. A lot of the time we are investigating something in his books in this series, and this is also a steampunk world. We basically have kind of an alternate history Egypt that we're looking at that has not been colonized in the same way, and where people live with these kind of almost celestial beings like the Djinn and stuff like that. They are real and they can take certain forms, and we also do have some hauntings, but still I feel like what we see in this world usually isn't like horror, it's more like mystery and fantasy. And I still have to read the full-length novel in this world, and I hope to do that this year, but I have read the 2 novellas and the short story and absolutely love them and recommend. And my last adult recommendation is Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk. Now, this is only a novella, so something you can read very quickly to diversify your fantasy reading. This one also has a mystery aspect to it. This is almost noir feeling in a way. We do have this woman who made kind of a deal with the devil in a way, and because she did that, she knows that her time is running out. She had 10 years, and the 10 years are almost up now, where she has to give up her soul. However, she is also in a relationship with another woman. They're very much in love, and there is this mysterious, almost like a serial killer figure, and she gets the opportunity to investigate this person, this murderer, in exchange for maybe another 10 years. So she takes the job. What I also really like about this one is that we have an already established sapphic relationship in this book, and still you feel the feelings these two women have for each other, and I loved it. Now we're going into some YA recommendations. As I said, I still think these are absolutely fantastic books, and you should definitely check them out. Most of the next ones are duologies as well. So first off, we have a duology I'm reading right now, and that is the Raybearer duology. There is also a third book set in this world, but I don't think it is a direct sequel. I'm not quite sure yet because I'm still in the middle of the second book in the series. In Raybearer, we follow a young girl who has basically been brought up to fulfill her mother's wish, and her mother wants her to kill the crown prince. Now, when you hear that kind of synopsis, there is a certain expectation maybe where the story might go, also concerning the romance. However, it's going somewhere else, and I really appreciated it for that. Now, I must say that the way a lot of people talked about Raybearer, I had very, very strong 5-star feelings for this book, and it didn't quite live up to that. I still enjoy this series, but for me personally, it was a little bit overhyped, and I want to mention that just in case it feels that way to you too, and maybe so I can spare you a little bit of disappointment when it's not like the best thing ever written, but it is a very, very solid duology, and I can't wait to see how it ends. Next, we have a duology that I of picked up by accident. I wasn't actually interested in this, but I saw it at the library and I decided to pick it up, and I was absolutely blown away by it, and that is Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This is a zombie story. So we have an alternate history where basically I think it's like the Civil War in the US has ended, and now there is all of these zombies roaming the lands, and they are using black children to train them to go and kill the zombies. Now, if that doesn't already sound like something you want to read, then maybe you're just as not smart as I was when I thought I wasn't interested in this book. And it's also sapphic. It's also sapphic, and it's a blast. It was a very very kind of like action-packed, very, very thrilling read. You have these fights with these zombies, and it also has almost like a little bit of a Wild West feeling because of the historical setting and the zombies kind of attacking and stuff. It was just really great. I have to be honest, I enjoyed the first book way more than the second book. I think, honestly, this should have been a trilogy. The second book is just trying to do a little bit too much, but I would still 100% recommend these. Then we have a book that I mention again and again and again to just show you how much I love this book, and that is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time, maybe my favorite YA book of all time. In this book, we follow a trans girl in a kind of utopian society where all the monsters have disappeared. And we are looking at this society that is now living this utopian life where people are accepted and people are cherished and people can just live up to their full potential. However, the mother of this girl that we're following is an artist, and one day our main character falls and hurts herself on a piece of art, and some of her blood gets on it, and suddenly there is this monster that we will know as Pet, and it's saying that the monsters have returned. And it's just, it's a very difficult read. It's a very difficult topic it's dealing with, but I think this is so important, especially considering like the idea of a utopia. It's not a place that is safe where suddenly all of our worries disappear. It's something that we have to fight for, and once we're there, we will have to fight to keep it. And I think that is what is like so great to me about this book, is that, you know, it takes effort to live in a great society. Okay, this next duology is a little bit opposite to what I said about Dread Nation, and that is A Song Below Water. The second book is called A Chorus Rises, and I love the second book even more than the first book. This is not like two books that you both need to read. Basically, we follow different main characters in the first books and the second book. And in the first book, we have two best friends, I think, that are almost like sisters. They're like really close, and one of them is a siren, and sirens are viewed with a lot of suspicion, and they're very heavily discriminated against because their kind of magic is seen as something extremely dangerous. But it's also linked to the fact that only Black women can be sirens, and all of the like other magical beings, they can be basically anyone. And so it is like also social commentary on the way that Black women are viewed in particular. And I really enjoyed that first book, but in the second book we follow kind of the villain in a way, like the mean girl from the first book. And if you know anything about me, I have such a weak spot for the mean girls of the world, and so I absolutely loved A Chorus Rises. And last but not least, we're gonna throw in one of my favorite ongoing series right here, where I have to admit I still have not read that third book yet. It's Legendborn. I love this series so much. So in Legendborn, we follow a girl who sadly lost her mother, and she's participating in one of those like early college kind of things that, as a European, I have no idea how that stuff works. However, she is attending some college classes or whatever, and there is like a party at night, and she sees a dude who's doing something magical, and she thinks that he might have something to do with or know something about the way that her mother died. So she tries to infiltrate this secret society thing to figure out whether they know anything about her mom. Now, this is famously inspired by King Arthur and is in a way a retelling of that in a modern day setting, but it is also so much more for me personally, so I would highly recommend. And as soon as the short version of the Oathbound paperback is finally out, which should be in April, I will buy it and then I'll do a reread of the first two, and I can't wait. So these would be my recommendations for some amazing fantasy books written by Black authors. But right at the end here, I wanted to throw in some of the adult fantasy books by Black authors that are highest on my anticipation list and that I hope to read very, very soon. Now, the first one is going to be a trilogy, and so far we only have the first book, and I have that terrible habit that I like to wait until a series is finished before I start it, but that would be Birth of a Dynasty by Chinaza Bado, and this, I've seen it around last year, it came out last year, and it sounds so good, and I am very intrigued to see how the sequels will be received, but yeah, this is very, very high on my list to read. Then we have a series that is now finished, it's also a trilogy, and that is The Convergence Saga by Cadwell Turnbull. This seems to have a bit of a horror element to it as well, and if you know me, horror fantasy, I'm right here for it. I can't wait to start reading this series, and yeah, I'm just so excited. And then last but not least, again, a completed trilogy is the Wormwood trilogy by Thompson. This one seems to have a bit of a sci-fi edge to it, which makes me a bit more hesitant because I'm not a very big sci-fi reader. But still, this I've had this on my wish list since the first book came out in 2017, and I need to read it. So I hope this list of books gave you some inspiration to diversify your fantasy reading this year. I am planning to do more videos like this. I had a lot of fun doing it last year and the videos were quite well received, so I hope that continues on in that way. I would love to hear your recommendations in the comments, as I had mentioned before, and I would also really appreciate it if you hit the like button. That really helps me out, and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye!